Oh, that's my plein air setup, my paints and so forth. And there's the tree I'm going to paint today. And this is a close-up of my palette setup. And there's my spray bottle and palette in the bottle, sold exclusively at Watercolors.com. My two plein air brushes, silver brush 1/2 inch flat and a number 8 round. And I have a basic palette set up here with just the basic colors red, yellow, and blue, which I'll be using in the painting today.
For the palette, sheet of paper, a little bit of burnt sienna for the tree trunk, and I got a little bit of grass out there. So I got some hooker's green, a little bit of lemon yellow. Get my brushes warmed up a little bit here. Ultramarine over here, getting a little darker brown. So this is the flat brush, the 1/2 inch flat brush. I may, because of all the branches and everything, I want to move to the number 8 round silver brush. Black velvets, and you want to be a little bit darker than that. Add a little bit of blue to that, we can make it kind of brown. Okay. Another thing, I have a spray bottle here now. For me to get started, for the background, this is the way. This is the good. Just to practice here, I've got I'm using a dot spray bottle with a fine mist top on it, and I've got some cobalt blue mixed up in here on a fine mister. So for me to get the background here with all that blue sky, instead of me trying to paint between the branches, then I just go ahead and put some color on the back of before I get started. That gives me the background. I think that's what I'll do. Alright. So I'll put away my test sheet here. So get started with the painting. I'm going to use the spray bottle, fine mister, and I'm going to go ahead and put in some color there. Put some of that background color in there with the fine mister. So I'll put that fine mist sprayer on there to get a little bit of the background started.
You can see here I also did a preliminary drawing before I started the painting today, just to get some reference lines on my paper. I left the background noise there also in a previous section there. I wanted to get a little flavor for the actual outdoor area where I was. Close to a roadway, maybe 100 yards away, but didn't interfere with what I was doing, so I just let them. I enjoyed a little bit of background. So here I'm starting out the painting. I've got the photograph off to the right side over here, so you can see the subject I'm looking at. And here I'm painting with burnt sienna, the trunk, and I'm really right now I'm blocking in the major large trunks and limbs of this particular tree. There's two main trunks, one to the, it goes more or less right up the center area, and then there's another trunk which branches off to the right a little bit. Those are the two main parts of the tree, and then there's lots of limbs I want to add in here too. So I'm really beginning with the first basic structure here to get the major components of the tree shape. And you'll see me build this up gradually. I've got this right now. Also, right now on my plein airs, I'm trying to document this with video, and I'm also practicing a little bit of technology here, just about where I should stand and also so forth. So I will be looking at these videos and ways to how I can improve them in the future to get a better scene and so forth, so that you have less interference. But my hand sometimes or my shoulder may be in the way, but I'll try to move aside. I'll also show some close-up views of where I have how far I've gone on the painting and so forth. So if anybody has any comments on that or would like to give me some comments or some way to help to do that, I'd appreciate it. But I'm going to continue on with a lot of plein air because the weather is really turning nice, and this is really an ideal opportunity of the year to start painting, especially in the springtime. Now you can see I got the major trunks blocked in, and I'm going to do here's a close-up of where I've gone so far, using mainly the round brush and a lot of burnt sienna paint to do the major painting in the trunk so far. Yeah, I've moved the angle of the painting a little bit, so I think you can see a little bit better from this angle. Again, I'm experimenting on placement of the camera versus the painting itself, and also trying to paint, and also have an opportunity for the viewer to appreciate what's happening. Here I'm beginning to look at painting the smaller branches now off of the main limbs. These are the smaller branches that branch out from the large limbs of the trees. And I'm using the round brush again, and you can see I'm using a little bit of blue, a little bit of ultramarine blue now mixed in with the burnt sienna, changing the colors a little bit. And I really was fascinated with the shape of the limbs here. They begin to curl and have a little arc, because as a tree grows, the limbs grow toward the sun or toward the source of light. So you can see how the tree really grows. It grows from the inward out, and the branches become smaller as you move up, but they also branch more upward, more vertical, as you go higher up the tree. And there's some real beautiful curve shapes to the limbs as they branch out from the major limbs. So this is the characteristic of this particular tree. Every tree has its own different way or different shape, just like individuals or individual people. Trees are individual. There's no two trees exactly alike. So we're coming down here to getting some more of the smaller branches and off of the major limbs. You can see the nice curve shapes of those limbs. I love that. I love the way they turn and move out. I'll take an overview of the location and the scene, and I'm going to start working on other parts of the painting now. Starting with the foreground and then moving into the background, put in some color and some basic shapes just to complete the painting a little bit, to get it set up. Okay, now we're going to think about the foreground. I've got a large flat brush working here in the foreground. And I'm going to start with some hooker's green, mixed in with a little bit of a lemon yellow. Give me a nice spring green for the grass in the foreground. And I'm using a very simple stroke there across the horizon, not horizon line, but that's the ground level at the base of the tree, which we've looked at through the pictures and so forth. Just getting a shot of that one there with the grass. So you can see the angle of my painting board. I'm getting a bead of paint there at the bottom, which is good because watercolor, you can keep at night. If you keep the paper wet, in this case the bead at the bottom of the paint there is keeping that paper damp so that there won't be any drying out at that point. Everything gets dried above that bead. So it's easy to move down with the color if you keep a small bead there at the bottom of the flow. I call it a wash. So this is a classic way of painting in a wash with watercolor, is to keep a bead of paint at the bottom of the stream or at the bottom of the wash.
You know, as far as background, it'd be very, very simple. I eliminate. When I look in the background, I do not look at the objects around. I just pick out things that I like. There's a tree line way, way back there, and that tree line starts in about right here. So I can put in some indications of trees way off in the background. So I see those far off trees, and let me take a shot of that with the camera. See what I'm looking at. I'm going to move the camera. So what I'm looking at is those far off trees way off in the background, behind the tree. So I painted a little bit of the grass there, and now I'm just looking way off in the background. There's trees way, way back, and that's my background shot. Way back there. That's what I'm looking at. I ignore the buildings, I ignore the other shapes. There's a little bit of water back there too. No, not really. There is water. You can't see it, but there is water back there. That's where the I'm going to come back here and focus back on my painting here. Okay, so when I do the background here, I'm just putting in the color and give a little interest here in the background.
My intent here is just to keep the background very simple, very basic, not a lot of detail. Just a hint of color, just a hint of shape, and a hint that the background consists of possibly vegetation back there way off in the background. So the idea about this type of painting is to keep the background and the surrounding areas as simple as possible. Eliminate all the shapes and items around that don't apply to what you're trying to capture. The story in this painting is about the tree. The other things in the background do not apply to what I want to paint. So I eliminate those items and just keep it as simple and basic as possible in the background. Now, adding more detail to the branches. This is a lot of fun, taking the round brush and then sharpening the point as much as possible, and going and adding the little twigs now to the end of those branches. Now, those are the areas that cover the leaves or carry leaves, and so they add the more characters to the tree. They also fill in the empty spaces, and they add the necessary detail to describe the actual function of the tree, where it has limbs and branches, and then it has twigs and small parts. So those little areas keep the interest alive, and you can see the structure, the bending and the twisting of the branches. And I love that arc, where even the twigs have a swooping arc to the shape of the twigs, and they're all reaching toward the sky, toward the light. And that's the whole purpose of the twigs, is to pick up the light, to nourish the leaves, and to keep the tree growing strong. This is the best part of the tree, is to actually do the outside shape with the twigs and the small branches. Now the final touches, I'm going to be using the rigger brush, which is a real fine pointed brush, and it's great for doing fine small detail. And the rigger is used in a lot of things, like sailboats or doing the rigging and so forth, but also painting tree limbs and small areas and very fine lines. And so this will add the final touches to those large limbs and those large branches, and will actually pull out the final shapes that will also curl around the edges of the tree itself. So these real fine lines are created by the rigger brush. And this is a lot of fun, a lot of detail, but by looking at the shapes of the tree, and then by looking at the limbs that are created, then moving the rigger brush in that direction. Again, these are shaped along the limbs themselves and reaching out to the sky with very fine lines that has the final points on the end of the branches. So this rigger brush does a great job of lifting it out, moving the branches out to the side, and giving that feeling of the spreading out of the wings, the spreading out of the limbs, that creates the shape of the tree and also the gracefulness of the tree, these long flowing limbs. And this one here, I'm going to draw here, it comes down, it actually has a very dominant, drooping, swerved, beautiful, curving shape. It comes down to the bottom and hangs down low. I really enjoy painting a tree and having the limbs with the final touches with the rigger brush. A lot of control and flow of the paint, and then final touches makes it look like a real natural growth of nature's trees. Okay, we're coming down to the end of my plein air session here, and we're going to take a final look at the tree. I'm going to bring some real close-ups here of looking at some of the final details, which I will cover in the studio. But to look at those branches and to look at the detail that's there, it's very interesting. So I'm going to come in real close, and we're going to take a look at the how the branches come together. Also some of the blossoms that are forming for the leaves that are going to be coming out real soon on this particular tree. So there's lots of little green buds out there on the end of those twigs that are ready to burst out into big fine leaves that are on this tree. Those are the final touches I will add in the studio, and also look at those branches, how they cross and tangle and twist and turn. And at the final point is those little clumps of green buds that will be leaves in the full burst of summer. Those will catch the sun and will nourish the tree. Now, this is the second sketch I did on that same day I was out there. I took the opportunity, as I was putting things away, I brought out my field sketch pad with my brushes, and I started detailing just that one section of the trunk and a couple of the lower branches. And I just wanted to go through doing parts of the tree, so that if you don't have time to paint the whole tree, or the tree may be too complicated to get the whole tree, then just concentrate on parts. Maybe you want to pick a certain branch, or in this case, I'm going to take the trunk with a couple branches and also look at the shadow portion. That's the section I'm going to focus on right there, just the base of the tree, the way the trunks come together, and the shadow pattern that's there. So I'm isolating it down to parts, and then we can put the pieces together later. So this was just another opportunity while I'm on location, another few moments here with my equipment all set up, and take another chance to take another small sketch. I could have picked another item possibly, and I do sometimes. I pick another item nearby or something else I want to sketch, but here I decided to focus more on this area of the tree. Here I'm putting in the main trunk down at the base of the trunk, and I'm using just the round brush, and I'm using the same paints I had before. I'm using a little bit of burnt sienna mixed in with a little bit of blue, ultramarine blue, to give me a dark brown, almost a black. And then here I'm getting that interconnecting branch, or that main branch, which right there I'm showing is really the main part of the tree. The branch that's off to the right there really is the secondary branch, which is also large, but because of the position I am of painting this, it looks like it's larger than what I'm painting here right now. It depends on what angle you're looking at something, or what part you're really trying to capture. Here I'm trying to also get the shadow pattern here that's being cast from one branch to another on this particular part of the trunk, because the sun had just came out very nicely now. I've been painting for about an hour now on location, so now the sun had come up, and I really had an opportunity to paint a little bit more of the shadow pattern that was hitting the tree from the branches, the cast shadows, and also the shadows on the ground. So here I'm just trying to practice observing and painting what I see. And here, what's interesting here, I'm trying to also capture these leaves, the limbs, as they overlap one another. Some of these limbs are overlapping the trunks, and you want to try to paint depth in that. So I'm trying to capture how would I paint that to make it look like one limb is in front of another limb, or how is a limb shown in front of another part of the tree. So there's lots of things to study and lots of things to practice and learn just by observing and then painting what you see, and how do you see it and how would you paint it. And here I'm adding more of that shadow pattern to that limb structure that's off the main part of the trunk. And it's not that complicated, but it's very interesting how the shadows and how you make it look, give it depth, how you make shadows on the limbs to make them round. How does the shape of a limb look as it's coming off a part of the tree? Some limbs come off straighter off to the side, some off to the front. So there's a lot of things to learn on observing and how would you paint a particular section of a tree, and how would you paint the angle of the tree as it comes out. So that's the things that here I'm adding those little small branches that come down with those green leaves on. So I'm adding the small branches now that come off that one limb, that one major limb. There's some small branches coming down, which has some leaves on there that just starting to branch out. So I'm capturing the shape of that branch, of those small branches that are coming off that major limb that's coming off the trunk of the tree, and how they overlap each other, how they cross, how they intersect, and so forth. And the shape, what's the shape of them? How do they turn? How big are they? How wide are they? So there's all kinds of things to analyze and look at. And now also the base of the tree, I want to just paint a little bit of that green grass. And again, I used the other brush now. I'm using the flat brush. and I'm mixing up a little bit of the hooker's green. Green. I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow lemon in there to lighten it up a little bit, because the hooker's green is a dark green, and here I'm looking at a spring green color. So I have to adjust the color as what I see. I see a spring green, so I'm going to take the hooker's green, which is darker, and I'm going to add a lighter color, which is yellow lemon, and it will lighten it up so it gives me that spring green look of what I'm looking at. So I'm trying to paint what I see. I'm trying to capture the color that I see from the observation. And I know the color is going to change when it dries, so I have to compensate for that also. So I put a little more brilliance in the color, because I know it's going to get a little bit lighter and maybe a little duller looking when it dries. So I try to compensate for that when I actually paint it. Here I'm looking at the shadow side of the tree in the back, where the green grass will be a little bit darker back there, behind the tree, in the shadow of the tree. So there's a lot to learn by observing just a simple tree trunk with 3 or 4 limbs, and study the shapes, and study the shadows, and study the colors. There's a lot to learn in just studying nature in itself. And that's the best part of plein air. Plein air is a study of nature. It's painting what's outdoors, it's painting what's in front of you, and it's painting live. It's painting things that are happening right at that time. Because it's going to change tomorrow. The lighting is going to be different. The weather is going to be different. So those are the things you try to capture on every plein air venture you try. And just go outside your back door and paint whatever you see. Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Now I'm back at my studio after my little plein air expedition. And I'm going to be doing a series of plein air because the weather now is just turning great here in the springtime. So I did the plein air, and it's pre-recorded, but I'm going to go ahead and do a continuation of that here in the studio. And what I'll do, I want to come in here and add some more of the technique and add a little more detail to that tree. And we'll discuss that. So I'll take you over to my painting table and let me get started. Okay, this is the photo reference here of the tree. You saw that in the very beginning of the video, but that's the tree that I was painting on location. And I came back to the studio and I did a sketch. I made a sketch of the tree on plain paper using pen and ink in a drawing. And then from that, I've gone ahead and did some really some more detail. You can see here I've added the branches here with the watercolor brush and so forth. I actually printed this off from the sketch. I printed this off on a piece of 190-pound watercolor paper. And then I went ahead with the watercolor brush, and I've gone ahead and added in the darks, branches. I've added in some more detail. So I'm going to go ahead now and show you a little bit more from a little bit more of those techniques that I used here at this point. So this is the painting that I had that started right from the plein air example. This is what I did on location. Now what I would do here now is I would, for example, some of these branches here that are, this one here, for example, these 2 branches here, I would go ahead and darken that in. So I got some ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mixture. And what I would do now is go in and add this branch right here. It'll want to go, looks like it's pretty straight, and it curls all the way out to the end. It all goes off the paper. So that's this one right here. So I would go out. I like this to be a little darker value. It's pretty straight, then it goes out forward, and it goes out, and then it starts to bend off in an arc. So using the number 8 round brush, and add a little detail to the branches. And this one here, just above that one, it has a curve to it and goes down. So again, I'll darken it up a little bit. Here's one up here like this. I did this on location by observation. As I come back here to the studio, I can put a little more detail into it now and take a little more closer look at the photograph. And this has a branch that goes up a little bit. So I'm not trying to capture and paint every branch and everything. I just give you some detail, a little detail here on how I would finish off this sort of painting after a little plein air. So those there, and then you get some more paint here now. Mix up more of that ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Now there's a branch up here. This one it curves over up here at the top on the left side. There's two branches, two major parts of the trunk. This part of the right and this one up here to the left goes way up up here straight up in the air. So this one here has a branch up here at the top, and I want to darken that in a little bit more. So again, I'm using the round brush, and this is a little bit longer, so I extend that a little bit more, overlaps. And then there's a branch that comes off, a small twig that branches off that. So add that little bit of detail. And then there's this one here to the side. I add a little bit more into that. It's got a little curve to it, so I add to it. And it goes on out. So I'm adding just add these details to the branch. Now there's this branch. I'll go down start at the bottom here now. There's this branch that comes out and then it curves down here at the bottom. And I like that one. Okay, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on. But this one comes down and I'll darken up just a little bit. Okay. And there's one above that. I want to put that one in. One above that comes out. It goes out to the side. Mix up some more paint here. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And this one comes up. You'll see it comes up. It comes more of an angle up above this one. And it goes out to the side. So just adding it. So what I'm doing is putting the final touches. So with a round brush, I'm adding in the detail now. Adding a little more texture, a little more value to these. Now, there's one more I want to talk about. There's a branch up here that comes across and curls and goes way out here to the side. That's another one here I want to capture. This one right here. So there's really two of them. There's one here that comes from this side, this trunk here, part of the trunk. It comes across, goes on out. I'm going to capture that one. So it starts over here on this side of the right trunk. And goes up, goes across, and curls up. Beautiful branch. I love that one. And there's one more I want to show. So I'm really adding the details now. This one here would come off this part of the trunk here, and it curls up. I like this one too. This one here, it curls up, and it goes on out, and it gets even longer. Add more and more detail to that one. Okay, so I keep adding the branches and so forth with the larger branches with the number 8 round brush. Okay. All right, then the next thing I do is I pick up the rigger, and I did a little bit of this on location too. I used the rigger brush, but here I want to get a little more, give a little more depth to the painting here. And again, I'm not going to finish the painting today, but I'm just demonstrating the parts that I would add to this particular scene. So again, I load the brush up with the same color, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue, load the rigger on the side, roll it so it gets a nice sharp point. So now I'm going to do the real fine branches. I think I'll start out here at the very top. There's some real long branches here to go all the way out to the side. I'm going to get a little bit longer than what I have here. So I start out here in the center of the tree, and as I go out, I'm going to take this rigger now and just make those branches really long. Make them flare out. And there's one here. This one here, you can see the branch goes out here to the side. This one, I can go make it a little bit longer. And there's this real long one here. I like that one, so I'm going to add that one here too. This one comes in. So I'm adding a little more detail to the edge of the tree. The tree gets very long over here, and these branches get uh, thinner, and they streak out all the way across the page. So using a rigger brush, you can see I can get a nice fine line. And just following the shape there. Now this side over here, I want to add a little more detail over here now, just to show you. Up here in the center, you can see all kinds of branches up in here. Really small branches and twigs. So I'm going to come up here and build this up a little bit more. Come on up. This is the highest part of the tree, so I'm going to build this up a little bit more, bring it out. Now I'm adding the real fine lines now. Real fine lines with the rigger brush. And this side over here, you can see a lot of branches in here. Little twigs, little parts of the tree. So I'm just adding more volume now to the tree, more volume of branches. And that's what I did with the little. I'll show you again a sketch again what I did with. We just went and added more and more and more. And this part up in here, I need to bring a little bit more out of here. So I'll bring these branches out here a little bit more on the side. Using a rigger brush, I can get those nice fine lines. Okay. So that's how I would add dimension, add a little more volume, a little more detail to the branches and so forth. Now there's also a part where, and you can see here on this sketch I did, you can see I just kept adding branches all over the place. Okay, you see how thick they are, and just fine lines and so forth. This is all done with a rigger. Okay, but you'll notice also I'm going to come up close up here. You'll see it on these small branches. You'll see there's little buds here where the leaves are going to start popping off. Okay, so what I did there was I took a little bit of green number 1 and mixed it in with that burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, just to give me a gray, or a greenish gray color. I used the rigger again, load up the rigger. And then I went in there and I just put little dots on those branches. So I just used the tip of the brush, adding those little indications that those are where the buds are going to come off, leaves are going to come off the branches. Okay. So I added those in, and you could spend a long time doing this, but I just want to show you how I did that. Just went in, added a little detail to the branches, and you can just look at the photograph. You'll see all along the edges here, especially along this one right here, long, and you see all those little. And that's what I did. Just use the tip of the brush and added that detail in there. And I'll show you the sketch. On the sketch I did, you see the little dots on there I put on the leaf, all the branches, especially down here on the bottom here. So I want to do that. There's some parts down here at the very bottom of the tree. You see that in the photograph. So I went down here and just put those in there with the tip of the rigger brush. Okay, and I can just keep adding them on, and keep adding a little more branches. I keep adding branches. I make it as thick as I want. Now the background, you can see here, the background was very. In this case, it was early in the morning, and the sun wasn't up yet, so the background was very light background. And I decided to leave it that way, and I put it in when I was there. When I painted the background in, I left it to be a light value. I'm going to leave it that way. Okay, leave the background just a hint of some trees in the background, not any detail at all. And you notice what I did with the dot spray bottle. I used the fine mister. What I used with a fine mister, a dot spray, it was with a black top. I went in and I sprayed that first before I did the tree. And what that did was that filled in that background with the sky color, with the light blue sky color. So I don't have to do anything with the background of the sky because I did that with a fine mister. And that's a good application of the fine mister. You can go in and without disturbing the paint that you have on the painting, you can spray over it and get a light background color, add in color with the fine mister. And that does a great job as far as knocking down the white paper, but putting you a nice color in the background. Okay, now let me show you one more thing that I wanted to discuss. Let me put you on my close-up camera. Now on this one here, what I did, I started you saw in the video, an introduction video, I did on Plein Air. I did the sketch. What I did, I took parts of the tree. I took the main trunk, here at the bottom, and I was just concentrating on these main branches in here. All right. But the real thing I was trying to do, I was trying to decide how am I going to show the branches that come forward and are separate from the other branches. And what I decided to do was I add a little bit of white paint to the mix. You can see here, and show where it attaches to the trunk. And as it comes out, it overlaps this other part of the trunk over here. And so you can see it coming forward off of the tree. And I did another one up here at the top, this other branch. I put the branching on the trunk and then had it come down, and I put those small branches in. And I added some green leaves on that to show, and that's exactly what's in the photograph. If you look at the photograph, there's green leaves down here on the bottom of this small branch coming down here. So that was my solution to how to paint the limbs that are coming off of the tree, coming toward me, and also away, but also how they overlap and cross over. So I could do that in the actual painting over here. I'll take you back to the painting table again. I can take a little bit of that white paint, and I'll use the number 8 round again. So I'll bring up some titanium white, and I'll mix it in with that mixture of the ultramarine blue, because I want to get a light color. And I can come in here to this branch here. I can paint that in. I get a little bit lighter. And I can bring that branch over here as the one that crosses over in front of this other part of the trunk. So I can paint that across. Paint that across there, and then that will give it the look of coming forward off of the tree by making it lighter, making it a lighter color. And then I can really, if I wanted to, I could take the other branch or the other part of the trunk and darken it up a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt sienna here, and I can darken this brown back here. So I can really darken this section up here. It's in shadow behind that, and that would really emphasize that branch coming over across. So I can take some branches like this, and I can add a little value change to them to give them a look of as they're coming forward on the tree. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I think it was a good demonstration of what additional techniques you can do to painting a tree. Once you did the preliminary portion on location, then bring it back and then do some more details. I'm going to have a copy of the photograph and the drawing. It'll be on my website, and the link to those drawings and photograph will be on the video today in the comments below in the description. But you go to my website on the Fun Watercolors, and then you can download that and give it a try. It'd be interesting to see how you do along with drawing the tree, and then do some of those techniques that I showed you today, and post them on my Facebook, Everett's Watercolors art group page on Facebook. I'd love to see some comments, and give me a thumbs up about today, and give me some thoughts about what you think of what I'm doing. So I appreciate you looking in, and we'll see you next week on Thursday at 2 p.m. Bye.